All right, let me start out by, I sent out the minutes to everybody. Are there, of the meeting on the 29th? Are there any corrections, additions, deletions? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve, Duke.
Okay, and a second, please.
Second, Katie.
Katie, all in favor signify by either raising your hand or saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The minutes are approved. Next item of business is our easement with Eversource to get the power from across the street to the school site. Randy, where are we at on that one?
Redness and Meads finished the updated survey. It's been provided to Eversource. We're waiting now for the actual overlay of the needed easement as the next step. Open question to David, anyone else? Is this issue right now a bottleneck or hold up in any way, or can anyone point to a critical path type of date?
So I know one thing that I've been George has been spearheading this, but one of the things we're doing right now is we're swapping out the generators. We're signing an agreement with HO Penn to get another generator out here, and we have that allowance set up, the utility fee allowance in our GMP.
Right.
We'll be using some funds from that. It's George, I don't know if you remember the specifics on the cost of that.
Well, the generator itself, yeah, it's, I got it, projected like maybe 3 or 4 months rental. So it was about, I think it was like $7,000 for the 4 months rental, which doesn't include the, the fuel. But yeah, we are carrying an allowance for all the utility charges for, like, temporary power and all of that. So, we'd probably be billing it under that. Then,
But George, no impact to the work on site though, right? We're able to, the trades have the power they need for temporary work.
correct. Yeah. There is going to be no impact. We brought the generator in. That'll probably power the trailer park, if you will. And then, as right now, Capasso's, they just have a small generator they're bringing on their own. But once the steel's up and as we get a little bit more people on site, if we don't have, we're pushing to get the permanent feed by like the end of April, early March. If we need to, we do have some pricing to bring a couple smaller generators on site to be used for the trades. After the steel's up, and if we need it for like underground and stuff, we'll probably just bring some smaller generators for the trades to use until we get the the primary feeder in.
This is Andy. Dave, is there any noise issue? I'm assuming we're running this from working hours. We're not running this at night, right?
Correct.
That's correct. Yep. Scott was, I think, coming in a little earlier to turn it on, but I believe given some concerns, I believe he's now not starting it until 7 a.m.
Yeah, that's correct. And then actually the new generator bringing in is a little bit quieter than the one we have. So
with regard to the easement, I think the idea was to dig that trench down the entryway when the school was on, is it April break, Luke?
Yes, you're wondering when that is?
No, I'm just saying it's a break in April. I think that's when the idea was to dig that trench down there. So we want to make sure that we get the easement, we get the Department of Transportation permission to cross the road and all that stuff well in advance of that dig. That's sort of our timeline.
That makes sense.
Okay, and if I can weigh in on that, this is Amy. I know that Banesh, our civil engineer, is next. I think that now they have the survey, that's the next step is for them to overlay the information.
I thought that was for Eversource to do first, or is that our job first?
I think it could go concurrent. Probably.
Concurrent? Okay.
Yeah.
And the answer was?
That they could do it concurrent.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
We had a proposal from Ferguson Electric to put ultraviolet lighting in the rooftop air handlers. And it was going to cost us, their add-on was $34,500. And I basically turned this over to Mike Lynch, and Mike, you have a point of view on this, which I think solves the issue.
Yeah, there's a couple reasons why the school district is not in favor of this. The first one being that it's a good system if your operating room or your you got a clean room that's making computer circuitry, but for regular air purifying for regular operations like a retail store, a school, library, something like that, it really doesn't do anything, and it has no effectiveness on the coronavirus, which you would think would be like the hot topic that would get people all excited. So that is one reason. The second reason is we had a long discussion about this as far as retrofitting some of our other schools that have central air conditioning and ventilation systems, and that's when we first started looking at this type of stuff. We looked at this and we looked at bipolar ionization as the other method, and they both just don't have the science behind them. So we rejected this once already for our other buildings. I can't see asking for it as an extra on this project. I don't think it's worth it. So we haven't changed. The school hasn't changed its position on UV lighting in HVAC ductwork.
Hey, this is Andy Ashworth. Just for if you want, Mike, we've put bipolar ionization in all our office buildings now, and we have been compiling the data relative to what it does, and the efficiency, the costs, all that kind of stuff. And we're seeing some pretty good data relative to viruses as well as a lot of pathogens that are in the airborne. That could be in the air. So if you want, I can share you some data on the ionization front, bipolar ionization, and actually done correctly too. We've been doing it for over 10 years, and now we've upgraded it yet again, and we're almost at a MERV 19 in our office buildings.
Well, that would be something I'd be interested in looking at. We do have a small ionization system in the HVAC units that do the locker rooms at the high school. We have 100% ventilation 24 hours a day in those rooms, and we went, can't think of the name of the system. It's I get it from a guy up the line in Bridgeport, and Atmosair. That's it, Atmosair purifiers. And big benefit is it has sort of a chlorine slight chlorine odor to it. And so everybody thinks they're walking into a real clean thing like a public pool or something. So it's kind of a psychological effect of making them think the air's cleaner than it really is, maybe. But yeah, I'd like to see the data. Sure, that'd be great.
All right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll reach out to you, and I can walk you through some of our buildings, and I can send you some data to what we're trying to do as far as creating a cleaner air environment for all our tenants.
Sure. If you send the data, I'll look at it to get some information, and then I'll call you up and set up a time to come check some stuff out. That'd be great. Thank you.
Well, with regard to this project, we should probably look at the UV or ionization systems as an after applied item rather than trying to put it in now, it seems to me. So let's make the decision now that we're not going to go along with Ferguson's offer to put in the UV lighting at a $35,000 roughly cost for now. Okay. If you want to do it later, I mean, it could be a district-wide issue once you've got the data with ionization systems, but let's get it off our project right now. Agreed?
I think that makes sense, Kip, and the facilities committee rolled out some other projects throughout the other schools. So this is something we'll we'll add to that list. I think it makes sense, bigger picture.
Okay, good. There was a lot of work done on looking back at some items that we had taken out or might want to add by, I call it the design review group, and I'm going to turn this over to Diane and Amy to talk about.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I have
I'll
visuals.
just-
Diane, if you would like me to share my screen, you can talk through it using the visuals.
Yeah, I'll let you
Maybe
talk through
I'll,
it, Amy. I was just going to introduce that about a month ago, I had taken a look back at some of the items that we had pulled out of the project for cost considerations. And a few of us have met along with SLAM to kind of rule out what just isn't practical or needed, and give reconsideration to a few items that we thought might be worthy of a second look. So Amy's put together a visual to demonstrate some of that, and there is some meeting minutes, or not meeting minutes. There's a slide presentation that's available on the SLAM Oxbridge website, which shows the images we looked at when we got together a week or two ago to talk this through. Some of which I think is included here in Amy's presentation.
Right. I hope I'm sharing the right screen. Did I press the right button, Dave?
we see the presenter view for PowerPoint. So we see the actual slide and then the next slide with notes. So it's.
Oh, okay. So you're seeing the wrong screen. If you can you send that choice back to me again for presenting, and I'll share the correct screen.
Sure. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna click it off you first, and then I'm gonna click it back to you.
Okay. There you go. That should be correct now. Is it full screen now? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So decisions were made at our meeting last week, as Diane mentioned, and these 5 items were selected by the design review committee for us to push along in the process, get some pricing done, and or give some additional design information. So the first 4 items on this list were selected by the design review committee and are being further documented so that we can get pricing back. And I think Dave's prepared to share a little preview of that information if we have it. This is the images that we showed last week for the Jim Clare story windows, sort of reminding everyone that the cowl wall that's designed for that area is very frosted looking, and it's a polycarbonate material that over time does get affected by UV light. So it's bright white, and it's intended to stay bright white, but if it's a 50-year building, it may not look as great later. Whereas clear glass, and because this is a north-facing window way up high, we're happy to introduce clear glass for the gym. It would allow you on the inside to be able to see the sky and know, the weather, for example, that day. Whereas the cowl wall would really block your view entirely. It would just be a white glow. So we recommended this change to clear glass using the aluminum storefront that's specified everywhere else on the project. And so that's what's going to be priced. Yeah, go ahead.
So I went through last night and tried to look at some of our budgeted values for things, and then where we have information from our actual current contractor, try to go through their schedule of values and see if we can decipher what we think that the cost would be for this. So these are all very approximate values, but I think if we were to replace this translucent system with a glazed, Amy, my assessment, I did it off of glazed curtain wall, not storefront, so I'm not sure how big of a difference, but we could at about 850 square feet, it's probably about maybe $17,000 of a net added cost change.
Okay, we'll look into that. Curtain wall is a little bit more expensive than storefront, but depending upon the height, storefront is really only available to us 10 feet or less. But I think we're within that range, so it might be a little less than what you're describing.
Okay.
The next item that we looked at was a suggestion from the design team of adding some ceiling baffles to the learning commons. We have these baffles. They are acoustic product and sound dampening, and they also have light fixtures on the underside of a few, not all of these baffles. And so we would suggest that in the learning commons as a design element, it would further distinguish the learning commons from the corridor by adding these ceiling baffles for both design and for sound dampening. And that was accepted by the design review committee and now will be priced after we send new reflected ceiling plans to the CM. So we have some design work to replace these light fixtures which were recessed in the ceiling with the baffle design. And so we'll be looking at the light levels and making sure that that's appropriate, which of these are lighted. And I have another view of that that I added here. You get an idea of what we'd be talking about. Any questions?
Amy, do you happen to know, or I don't know if George happens to know, those baffles, they don't require any sort of a support system above, like a unistrut or anything, do they? Are they for the most part mounted to the acoustic ceiling grid?
I think they'd be mounted through the acoustic ceiling grid to the deck above, but they do not require separate unistrut.
Okay.
And then
Just thinking about from a coordination standpoint, but I think that if we're taking recessed fixtures out of that area, my guess is we're probably in a similar situation if we go with those. So unless George, you had something to add there.
No, the only thing I would add is maybe look into the fire alarm with the horns and the speakers, because depending on how many you have, you might have an issue where you can't hear them.
Oh, yes. So, certainly the MEP engineers will take a look at that as well as sprinkler distribution.
And as far as an order of magnitude, again, there are recessed fixtures that would be coming out, that would be offset. So we don't have enough really at this point to know what this would be, and I'm not even sure quantity. I know the quantity we had in the estimate, which I believe represented only the media center.
Correct.
Right. So, and I think there was about 200 to 220 square feet of that material in the media center.
That sounds about right. Mm-hmm.
And again, we don't have that schedule of values from our trade contractor yet to really know what their breakdown of that is. But I know that what we were carrying in our estimate was about $14,000 for that baffle work in the media center. So depending on where the quantities are, we'll be able to kind of quickly guesstimate an approximate order of magnitude. But like I said, we'll have to figure out the credit for the fixture that is currently specified.
Right. Okay. Does the committee have any questions?
Mike Lynch, this came up last time. I'm not sure you're on the call, but what's your take on maintenance? I mean, this is something else where dust can collect above them, and just kind of cleaning and maintenance in general. You also got young kids that love to jump on stuff and swat stuff in the ceiling. So it's just a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, we have the baffles at the high school cafeteria.
Right.
And we had to be very careful where we put them because of smoke detectors, strobe signals saying there was, an alarm or a lockdown, and the sprinkler head locations. It was a lot more complicated, and I think in the end we didn't get anywhere near the amount of baffles that were originally thought because of these other things. None of them had lights on. They were simply acoustic. The lights were totally separate.
Right. What's your thoughts on just cleaning and maintenance?
And it's pretty much just a backpack vacuum. I mean, I would imagine the lights on the inside are LEDs and fairly standard fixtures. I don't see anything that way. I'm worried more what like George was saying. If you got warning lights and fire strobes and sprinkler heads, in the end, is it going to be worth it? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I forget what we're dealing with for ceiling heights in those learning commons areas, but the baffles, I'm just looking at the description we had in our estimate. It looked like those panels some of them were 8 inches deep and some were 16. Amy, does that sound about right?
That's correct. There are a range of heights, I think 16, 12, and 8 inches high each. And I believe the ceiling height in there is 10 feet. So, I'll double check my memory on that, but even if it's 9 feet, I don't think we're risking any children hitting them, but we'll be very careful about that. And I think the advantage that we have, Mike, versus what you were describing at the high school, is that we do have the MEP engineers who are implementing the design and also implementing the design of the smoke alarms and fire alarms and sprinkler system. So it's all going to be looked at once.
No, that's what we were doing it that way at the high school too, because there was a gut renovation and an addition.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be looked at, and we will only put in what's
based on, what MEP ended up coming back with, it limited the amount of those acoustic panels we could have hanging.
Correct.
But it still made a good difference.
Yeah, they do a remarkable job with sound dampening.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. This is Diane and Nat. I thought of all the items we looked at in particular, this seemed to be have a true benefit from a practical point of view for the school, as well as from a design point of view, to kind of further delineate the learning commons and scale down the spaces slightly for the children's scale, and just bring another level of kind of interest and playfulness. So if the other committee members agree, I think proceeding to do the design work and the research necessary to get a more exact price, so we can decide whether to proceed, would be really helpful. I think it's a positive design addition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Luke, what's your take on these?
Yeah, I
I
agree.
don't want you bumping your head on them.
No, yeah, I listen, with the current heights, if you see me in the lower wing, it's like someone just pointed out yesterday, I'm barely clearing our exit signs now, so I'm used to it. But no, I think, Diane, you said it well. The sound, the acoustic treatment is really valuable, especially in those spaces, right? Because learning commons are adjacent to classrooms. Kids can have nice conversations and do good group work, and we're still going to have a sound dampening effect. I know that the MEP and the design team will work to get the placement right, so it's not triggering alarm systems. And I agree, it's a nice. This to me is like a nice aesthetic, playful image that has a function as well. So I think they're great.
Thanks, Luke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, this is Sean. Let me ask a question. We're putting these baffles in for the ceiling, and I'm opposed to them because of the trendy nature of the architecture, and I think in 10 years they're going to come down. If we're really looking for sound baffling, I think we need to start going towards sound engineering, where you need to put, fabric and cloth and carpet on the walls and on the floors. And that's where you're going to deaden your sound. I understand the baffles at the top are going to do some minimal work, but I think against the architecture design and the trendy nature of it, I think I would rather go for carpet on the floor versus baffles on the ceiling. That's my take.
Amy, I believe the where you look on that image where it says welcome, wasn't that also designed to be acoustic, for an acoustic purpose as well, if I recall from previous conversations? To Sean's point, aren't there already sort of built-ins? This is like another layer on top of that, was my understanding.
That's correct. And the acoustic ceiling tile will also remain in that space. I think for maintenance issues, we would recommend the vinyl floor in these areas. There's going to be heavy traffic there. And I think it will be easier to maintain, and longevity of the product is better than carpet in those areas. And these acoustic baffles are made just specifically for what you're describing, Sean, that they work to, this is exactly what they're designed for. So they are the appropriate acoustic performance. I tend to recommend against carpet in corridor and high traffic areas for a school, especially at this younger grade level. But you know, if Mike Lynch wants to weigh in on that, that'd be fine too. We do have some tack surfaces that are fabric covered that would also help with the sound dampening at that lower level. So I'm comfortable with these spaces. I was actually comfortable with the design based on our acoustic engineers analysis early on. Without the baffles, this will just help, you know, even more. So.
Well, the school district take is we generally try to limit carpet, like Amy just said, especially in high traffic areas. We prefer if acoustic treatments can be vertical walls, you know, adding on the side of a file cabinet or a bookcase, things like that, that are going to absorb a little sound. And you know, they make flooring that's resilient and soft enough that it's not noisy, and it wears well. Cork type floors, things like that. So yeah, we try to stay away from carpet floors in elementary schools.
Yeah, you don't want carpet floors and these things. I've seen these areas in other schools where they have these outside areas for kids and stuff. It becomes a disaster with carpet. It just, I mean, you just, and it also just take completely away from this building, in my opinion.
This is Rusty. Following up on Sean's comment, is there engineering to show us the incremental benefit of this versus the acoustical tile that we currently have?
You will, this is additive to the acoustical tile, Rusty. So I can get product data for you on the baffles to share the additional benefit, but this is just that. It's additive. The acoustic tile remains because there's still MEP systems, you know, ductwork and piping that runs above the ceiling there. So we're not looking to expose that area.
No, I said the incremental value over the acoustical tile. So if you can get me that data, and Sean would probably be interested in it too, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do.
So, so I understand this too, is the idea today to understand and to have some agreed upon action of, okay, this is something that we are looking for the design team to move forward with, so that we can begin to coordinate their efforts with, you know, the planning and coordination work that's happening here on site? Because again, I guess just my point of reference on something like this is, obviously we're talking about, you know, swapping out fixtures and things like that, and we are, I know at 9 o'clock this morning there was an actual coordination meeting where they're going through and you know, reviewing the models and coordinating the building. So it's just a matter of, you know, is this something that there is some likelihood of it proceeding, so that we let the rest of the team know that in these areas we should be flagging it in coordination, so that we don't go past it, sign off on coordination, and realize that we've got to go back to it.
I would have the same question. I was under the impression that the design review committee's choices made last week are the ones that we should proceed with proposal requests on, and this is just a reporting out of that. This being one of those, but if the committee doesn't want us to move forward on the PR, we need to know that right away.
No, I think we want to move. We want to move forward with getting a proposal together for this, and looking at the numbers, what it adds to the cost, as soon as we can.
Okay.
I think based on feedback, just if we can get the cost sooner than later, and then we can make a decision.
Right.
Understood, but there's a fair amount of design involved in some of these, like this one, as mentioned. You know, it's not just a quick square footage replacement, because we want to be careful about providing the right coverage for all of the other elements that were discussed. So we need to do the right
documentation. It might be helpful, Amy, if we could get a rough number, just a ballpark number.
That's not for me at this point. That's for the CMs. So
yeah. So and with that, Amy, I think if we can get some rough counts of, you know, this is the area we've got, you know, approximately 40 recessed light fixtures that are coming out, and approximately X square footage of this. We could go to the trades and try to get some preliminary information and do a gut check, and maybe in that time, you know, if there's some technical data that's got to be reviewed as far as the benefits acoustically, you know, we can approach it from that standpoint, and then get the green light to actually incorporate the work and price it in detail. We could do a approach like that, so that way you're not expending too much effort before we know if it's a yay or nay.
Okay.
I'll try to do that. The engineers.
I know. It's kind of easier said than done, but.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next topic that we discussed, which is the lobby and stair light fixtures. Diane had asked us to review the design and whether or not we wanted to go back to some things that we had taken out during value management. The design team did not recommend a change at the lobby. We're happy with the circular fixtures that are designed for there. This is the exact product cut that came from the subs recently. It'll have a white ring. This comes in multiple colors. The product sheet that they sent had this black version, but it will be as specified with the white, and it's a mix of 2 different sizes. So we're not recommending a change in the lobby. In the stair, however, we are recommending a change to go back to this fixture, which is more linear in nature and reflective of the current design, the custom railings, the wall covering beyond, that type of thing. The circle would have matched or been more similar to the lobby fixture, but you know, we certainly do appreciate the opportunity to go back to the more linear design elements if we could. So that's something that we've asked the lighting rep for a fixture cost, and unfortunately I didn't receive that yet before the meeting. I can check my emails after, because I heard it's coming in this morning, but it had not gotten here as of 9:55. So I'll check after our presentation, see if I can update the cost information on that. It's a one-for-one simple replacement of fixture. While this linear one, it looks like multiple fixtures, it really comes to one junction box, just the same as this circular one will. So there's no change to the electrical. It's really just the fixture itself. Any questions on that? No? Okay. Roof screens is another element that we took a look at as the design team. And while we did a good job, I think, of reducing the amount of roof screens from 4-sided around every rooftop unit to just what you see in red on this image of the roof plan, it would be our desire to add back one panel that you see in blue here, because your view when you're standing on the patio from the backside of the lobby, you are really reading that rooftop unit beyond. So as you can see in this rendering, if we were able to put back the roof screen there, we would think it would be a little better view from within. Again, that didn't affect the neighbors, so that's why it was taken out as a part of value management. But given the opportunity, that's a recommendation of the design team. Questions on that one?
I think that's fairly obvious.
Yeah, right. So moving on. The last option that we were looking at is your selected add alternate for the fritted glass design. And we have suggested to sort of reduce the amount of frit pattern from full height on this wall of the lobby to just these lower panels that are highlighted in yellow. It would be a 25% coverage and a 10% coverage, and then clear glass above, represented by some of these images on the right-hand side is what we shared with the committee last week, and they asked for some more information. So I'm gonna shoot through these images which show where the add alternate had allowed for fritted glass. In every case, it was full height, and in every case, we're recommending reducing that amount. So it was within the courtyard, facing the courtyard from the corridors, and it was at the cafeteria, the ELP Commons, and the main entrance. On the right-hand side, we found an image. This is interior glazing, but we found an image that showed the same pattern that we've selected. It's also reflective of the indoor-outdoor environment that we were trying to capture in our design. And it also reflects the custom design on that main stair railing. So here's an image of the main entrance with the fritted glass shown. You'll notice that in all of the renderings, sometimes the fritted glass shows up very solid, sometimes it shows up much lighter, and it's dependent upon where the sun, or in this case, the light element that the rendering does, where that's coming from. So here you can really see the frit pattern on those lower panes of glass. Here's an image on the interior, and that, you know, really allows you to understand that you can see through this and see into the courtyard. Here's an image looking back at the building, and because the sunlight's coming from the other direction, you almost can't tell that there's a frit on here, but it's the same as what was in that last image. Looking at the courtyard wall beyond, again, depending upon where you're, where the sun's coming from and what angle you're looking at, you can barely tell that there is a frit pattern applied here, but along the ELP Commons room, you can see the frit pattern by looking at this angle. Interior to those corridors, you can see that the design committee asked us to take a look at every other panel rather than every panel of glass. And so what we've done is 2 with the frit pattern, 2 without, 2 with the frit pattern, 2 without, and so on through that entire corridor. And that's the way it would be on both floors, on both wings of the academic building. This would allow for the shadows to be seen inside the building, but of course that will change throughout the day depending upon the angle of the sun.
Hey, Amy, this is Sean. Quick question. Did the perimeter door coming outside the gym go into the parking lot, is that fitted or recommended to be fitted?
It is not. We actually did buy that in the alternate, but in our current thinking, which the design review committee asked us to sort of regularize that pattern and reduce, you know, in what we've looked at, we're reducing the amount. We're not recommending it at that entrance. There's a lot of doors there, as you know, and while the mullions of the glazing allow us to start and stop the pattern, the doors don't have a mullion halfway up.
This is Sean again. I was thinking of it more, you know, you got 25%, I think is what you recommended. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering if it shouldn't be on the, you know, the height of the child, you know, maybe up to 6 feet or something like that, where it should be even a little denser. And not so much for light, but more for security. And if I were taking that approach, then I would reduce the percentages on the courtyard to maybe much less, so that the courtyard is visible on the inside, but the perimeter to the exterior is light passing through, but not so visible for the, you know, you can see through the glass to the kids on the inside. That's
Okay,
just, that's a security comment.
Yep, and my response for you as far as security goes is that those doors are protected glazing. So regardless of their clarity, those do have protective glass. And I don't want to go into much more detail on this call, but you know, certainly the security committee did make a decision as to what the glazing is at human height, actually all the way up to 7 feet. So we have two types of glazing that would receive the frit pattern, both the security glazing and the insulated glazing. And that frit pattern would be applied to the inside face of the second glass panel. So the frit pattern is inside the insulated glass, but it's not changing the security of that glazing.
Amy.
Yes.
So admittedly, I'm not a design person here, right? And I've actually got limited experience of that type of glass, other than some of the stuff you've shown us, which is helpful, actually. I tried to sort of, like, in all honesty, I talked to Luke and Mike and stuff, and from a school point of view, I think we were landing on, honestly, let's cut back on this and potentially just leave it at the main entrance and the lobby area. I'm going to say, see when I see it now, I'm actually wondering, is that even more of a distraction at the main entrance? So I'm just being honest. I think we would have maybe said keep it at the lobby and the main entrance is our recommendation. But I'm actually more worried about that it's more messy at the front entrance. So I don't know if Luke feels the same or otherwise now, but that's just what I'm seeing from this and trying to interpret it. Originally, it's like, okay, let's look at it. Upon reflection, I would cut it back, and I think there's consensus from the school point of view to consider cutting it back. I'm not even more worried about seeing it when I look at it now, about even putting it in the lobby, and that's just me looking at it now and changing my position.
Yeah,
This is Rusty.
Sorry, Rusty, please.
I agree with that stance. We're spending a lot of money to develop a beautiful courtyard. I think there ought to be an unobstructed view of that courtyard. I wouldn't mind seeing if it's the right design on the two entrances, but I would not recommend for the interior of a viewing over the courtyard.
I was just
Okay.
gonna say, I think we're on the same page with this, which is that I agree. If it's a simple design at the front, that's doable. The interior courtyard, all the pieces where kids are traveling and where those learning commons are, where there's enough activity, I would just be really reticent to want to see more busyness in those locations.
Amy,
Kind of cafeteria.
yeah, Amy, thanks for the visual. I know this helps, and it helps me from a visual standpoint. It just immediately, to me, it just comes across as all very busy. And I think we have to lend to the really nice building we've designed. I think even the architectural review board in town is, about timeless and kind of looking, fitting in. I think this it just kind of takes away from everything now that I see it. I don't like it on the doors, actually, as you come in. I could maybe get my arms around it on the side, but other than the entrance, I don't see it as adding any value versus, doing the baffles and the sound type stuff for Luke, where it really, the dollars work from an educational standpoint. I think this just takes away from everything else that we're doing. And now that I see it, it just looks very busy.
Just one thing I'd add here that struck me. I was generally opposed to this the first time I saw it, but one thing I do like is the commonality with the custom railing. So I kind of like being able to revisit that theme throughout the school, and it may not necessarily be in this form, but that just struck me as something that was attractive, just to continuously see that.
I think we have to, Alan and I and the rest of the team have to think a little bit about, we've got no glass or fritted glass at Tokenique. We got some tinted glass at the high school. We're going to actually start down the path of looking at some serious renovations for 3 other elementary schools. And I need to think of some equity amongst all these schools. And, we're building an incredible courtyard. And I see no need for this.
Duke, your point of view is no, nothing in the cafeteria either, isn't it?
No, definitely not in the cafeteria. I think that just needs to be open and clear visibility, outside to those kids, whatever the normal tinting is or security. But again, just clean lines.
I appreciate your comments. If you don't mind me weighing in as a design point of view, I personally thought that my, and this is not like all the designers at SLAM, but me personally, I like the idea of limited versions of this, similar to this corridor that's on the screen now, where, like Randy was saying, kind of a suggestion of that same design element that gets further into the building, on the other side of the building from where the railing is, limits the amount of panels that includes the fritted pattern. And my recommendation, if we were to limit the locations, would be to keep it within the courtyard. Agree with you, Duke, that we don't want to block the view of the courtyard. I think as you can see in this image, you can really see in between these lines pretty clearly into the courtyard, but there's only 50%, actually far less if you're talking about the upper level of lights of window frames here, but only 50% at eye level are going to have the fritted pattern. We could reduce that further, but my recommendation would be I agree with you that it's not necessary at the cafeteria and maybe not even at the main entrance, so that there's nice clarity and vision out to the parent drop-off for security reasons. But that inside the courtyard, it's a little playful design element that helps to bring that tree or custom, kind of abstract tree design through the entire building. So that would be my design recommendation. The amount of it and where it shows up within that courtyard in the corridors can be, tweaked and revisited any number of times.
This is Diane.
This is Sean.
This is Diane. I agree with Amy, and I think these renderings really are so helpful, and I appreciate the time you put into putting this together. I'm feeling that there, like Duke had said, we have such a great building and great design. I think it's the frit pattern is actually starting to take away from it, particularly in the lobbies, in my opinion. What Randy suggested, I thought was really great. I think perhaps studying the frit panel exclusively on the lower panel as you look into the courtyard along that walkway. I'm just thinking of less like, of course, it's not going to offer anything in security, but there is like this open glass panel that's at a lower level that is kind of mimicking a handrail pattern of sorts, just as a comfort, like there's something more between me and the view in the courtyard, at least at that lower level. I think strengthening that and maybe treating it purely as kind of almost like a handrail type treatment and removing it from the upper levels could be useful. So, but I agree. I feel like it's busy and it's a little much, and I would support removing it from the entries and the cafeteria. But I think perhaps exploring one more iteration or two of using it in the courtyard would be valuable.
This is Sean. Do we have an estimate on what kind of cost we're talking about here?
Well, Sean, we have in the budget right now a $78,000 accepted number for fritted glass, as was originally planned, which included the cafeteria, the entryways, and the selective panels in the courtyard. So what we're talking about here is reducing the cost of our project. Okay.
That's correct. The design that I presented today is a little bit more than 2,000 square feet less of frit pattern than was in the accepted alternate. And I don't know a cost per square foot of the fritted glass. I don't know how to break that out, but this represents 2,000, a little more than 2,000 square feet less. Diane's suggestion, if I understood it correctly, looking at this elevation, would be to limit and eliminate the upper highlighted panels and to just leave it at this lower level, kind of at hip level and below for adults. And so of course that would further reduce the amount and further reduce that $78,000 alternate that was previously accepted.
And taking out the.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Duke.
Amy, could you go back to the main entrance?
Sure.
Thank you. So just, and I'm sorry if I missed this somewhere along the way, the blue around the doors that says elementary school on it, what is that material?
That's a metal panel, and that is 6 feet deep. It's really your portal, or it's not a canopy technically because it's three-sided, but it's really a weather protection around the doors.
Yeah, okay.
And that's a built-out element. I do have a rendering that shows that from the side. Hold on.
Yeah, no, that's,
Here it is. So you see it's 6 feet deep, and it's a metal panel, solid.
But again, I think if you go back to the larger version of that and you do more of a, I don't know, I don't want to say colored glass. I just think even the fritting just takes away from what I think pops in terms of the front door, the fact that it's an atrium. So I think that's enough design element right there. The blue, the fact that it bumps out, that's an atrium. I don't,
right. A funny thing, I mean, this image on your screen does include the frit pattern, and that's what I was trying to describe earlier. Depending upon time of day, the angle of the sun, what angle you're looking at the building, you know, here you can't even see it. I can, because I know it's there. I can read it a little bit in between some of the mullions, but when we go to the straight on view,
yeah, that just, it looks so.
shade, you really see it, you know.
takes away from the entrance, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with taking it out here. I totally agree, and I was only recommending it for the glass facing the courtyard if your intention is to continue to revisit it. Not something that.
I think that's a good idea, Amy, to be honest with you. At the front there, it's not even, it's nearly too small to even have an effect in some ways. And I don't think you want anything to even compromise looking out and seeing clear, no matter how casual or limited the visibility is and stuff. I think Diane's option of just looking at the inside and making something an option there might be a good aesthetic thing, but beyond that,
Yeah, I think I'm willing to give, in the interest of everyone's time, because we're all so passionate about talking about stuff. I'd be willing to give it one more quick look in terms of Randy's point in carrying that, design railing somewhere else in the building. But I think at the lower levels where it almost looks like it's below a chair rail, I'd be willing to take a quick look at that, but that's about it.
Okay, that sounds like you're in agreement with Diane's suggestion to limit it.
Again,
to just
limited.
this,
I mean, I'd almost think about it in
from
this
here
plan.
down, nothing here, nothing at the upper levels.
No, just below. Again, I'd almost think of it just as you come into the building, which is this as you come in, as you come into the building, just to pull that railing over and have it as a rail there, but everything else just clean and simple.
I think that's a great idea. I'm fine with exploring that.
Okay. So let's sort of say we're gonna eliminate fritted glass in the cafeteria. We're gonna eliminate fritted glass above the first rail, whatever that might be, wherever it is. And thirdly, we're not gonna have it on the front entryway. So then now to look at where you want to put it. So to follow Randy's idea of having some fritted glass at the lower level, which mimics the railing that's outside, which is carried inside into the stairwell. Does that sound like what we're talking about?
Yes, Kip. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to.
Agreed.
I want to move this on, guys.
Yep.
Thanks.
That's all
Let's
from
do
me.
that. Oh, all right.
But should we wrap? I mean, are there items that we can agree on now? As in the gymnasium glazing, the lobby stair fixture, and the roof screen. Should we give the approval on those so we can proceed? So Amy can proceed with those items.
I would say that's a good starting point. Does anybody have any discussion regarding to adopting those? We don't know what the prices are on the clear glass yet. We know it's approximate if we used what do you call it, David? What kind of glass rather than storefront?
Curtain wall.
Okay.
Which curtain wall is more structural than storefront is. Right. So if it was a curtain wall, it'd be about a $17,000 added cost. I'm sure the lighting fixture is not much of an added cost. And the roof screen on the rooftop unit, it has to be there. It's just a mistake. We forgot it. So I'm proposing that we adopt those three right now, pending the final number on the clear glass, and move forward and accept those as changes that we will approve.
I would
Any more
move that.
discussion?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a second to it?
Yeah, Sean
I'll second
seconds
it.
it.
Sean, okay. All in favor, just raise your hand or say aye.
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 Okay, we've got it passed. Thank you. All right, so the reason for this meeting was to talk about the certificate of payment. And I sent that long document out to you folks last night. It was just came into us later than it would normally come into us, but it's the first one. And I want David, and since we're talking about authorizing a payment of $2,368,000, and I gather we'll get one of these a month. David, is that correct?
That's correct.
So this is our first one. If you looked at it quickly, you'll note that we're paying Sean's lawn. We're doing what to the excavation. That's the biggest number. We're also paying for the insurance and bonds. We also have some payments to the Schenectady Steel for pre-building some steel for us. And we also have the usual general conditions and allowances. And if I missed anything on that's important.
So for the benefit of the committee, I know there are people on the design subcommittee that have seen this document before, but is there any benefit? Would you like me to take a couple minutes and just at a higher level explain how this document works?
Being our first time, yes, please.
Okay. All right. So George, I'll spin through the concept of how it works, and then if there's any specifics that you want to opine on. So let me share my screen. Applications. Okay. You see the document on my screen? Yes? No?
It's good.
Can
Okay.
everybody
All right.
mute their microphones? We're hearing some background noise. Thank you.
Okay, so how this works is this document, while it's only 14 pages right now, as we get into the project, this document is going to grow to 70, 80 pages because what we provide you is an overarching document. So this is the cover sheet for it, and it's supported by several pages of detail, the continuation sheet. So the overarching application that's from the joint venture to the town is a total of 5 pages, which that will not change throughout the course of the project. It will remain 5 pages long, and it will remain in this format. What you'll see after that is all of the backup from each of the trade contractors, and the software that we use, it compiles it all into the exact same looking format. So for consistency purposes. So just how it typically recaps it says what our contract sum is, and that's the GMP that was accepted. As changes are approved, they will show up in this next line that says net change by change orders, which then updates this the contract sum to date. And then this total completed and stored to date takes into account everything that's been billed to date. And then, as you know, there is retainage, and the retainage values show up a little strange. Typically, it's 5%, but there are different rules. If people have, if they've submitted their CHRO plan or they haven't, we withhold additional percentage as we're required. That's why those percentages on the retainage vary a little bit, and then it takes the total completed and stored less the retainage and gives the total less retainage. Then here, this is where, since it's the first payment, there's been no payments made to date. And then here is the current payment due, which it takes the total earned less retainage, less any previous payments, and gives the total to be paid. That is the actual amount of our payment, and that is reflected right here, which is the amount certified. The design team will do their review, and they will, they sign that. And then we have the box that is the balance to complete. It simply takes the contract sum to date, which is line 3, and then subtracts out the total earned less retainage. And then here, if there's any additions or subtractions via changes, those will show up in here. Each application gives the number, and it says which period it is through, just so people know. What happens is we put these applications in, and we forecast at the middle of the month, we forecast where we're going to be at the end of the month, and that's to allow our team and the design team to review it and make comment on the work in place. So that's the cover sheet. Are there any questions about that summary?
David,
When I
quick
submit,
question.
David, I'm sorry, when I submit this for payment, do I need to have the architect signed off first?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, I don't know, George, do we have a copy that was signed by Jeff?
No, I just have a approval on the pencil. So
Okay.
you'd have to sign this.
So I should, before I turn this over to Jen Chernesky and to Mr. Ruddle for payment, we need to have that architect sign off, right?
Correct. And typically you'll see Jeff Lamoth from my office, who will be closely involved in monitoring the percentage of construction that's complete.
Right.
Okay, so when you have that done, just send it down to me and I'll get it forwarded for payment.
George, will you work with Jeff on that?
Yes, I'll send it to Jeff.
Great, thanks. Okay, so then, and so now this is the breakdown. So what it's broken down similar to the way our GMP is, where each trade contractor has their own line item, and that way you can, for instance, so Schenectady Steel, it has their total contract value listed here, and then what are they looking for both this period and what is stored material, meaning goods that are actually not on the property, however, they're being paid for them, they're off-site, and you'll see we have requirements in our contract with our trades on that, where they're required to provide us with invoices, a certificate of insurance. They have to do a filing with the state of Connecticut, the UCC1 filing, and they submit it, they pay a fee and get that. So I'll just show you here, these numbers tie directly back to, here's Schenectady Steel, here's their total contract value, $1,555,000, and then their total completed and stored, $521,931.50 here goes directly to this location right here, 521. So to look at things from an overview, you would look at just the first 5 pages. If you were ever interested in really drilling down into one trade or another, that's when you would go to the backup information. So that's the same way for each trade. What'll happen as well as when change orders are written as they're approved, we will roll those change order values into these line items, so that if Schenectady Steel gets a change order for $100,000, this line item of theirs will increase by 100,000, so that it keeps it apples to apples. And then at the bottom is where you have our monthly costs, the bonds, and those are per the terms in the GMP as far as invoicing for those. The stormwater permit fee, that was in the GMP. And then our general commissions and reimbursables, it's a flat fee per month, as stated in the GMP. And the reason why this is higher is that this is technically for the month of December and January. Going forward, it will be the flat 98,000 per month in this field here. And then last is the fee, and it's simply a calculation. It's our fee that was agreed upon. It's on the amount of the work times the fee, and that's what it is, billed on a monthly basis. It's not a flat dollar amount. It's a set percentage. Are there any questions on the continuation sheet? George, is there anything you feel to add, or are we, or no?
No, I think that was, yeah, that was good, unless anybody else has a question.
Okay, are there any other questions? Because I'm going to next ask for a motion to approve the payment of the specific application in front of us for $2,368,030.50. That is, once I have the full signatures of the architect on the line. Is there any discussion? Being none, I will take a motion to approve payment of this particular pay application. Application number 1.
This is Sean. Motion to approve.
Do I hear a second? No one wants to pay?
Dan, second.
Who is that?
Dan.
Dan, thank you. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 It appears you guys are going to get paid once I have that signature.
Thank you very much
for the explanation.
We love what we do, but it's nice to get paid for it every once in a while. So thanks.
All right, and I'm going to hold you to your promise that you'll have these going forward in a day or two in advance of our meeting so that people can look at them. Okay?
Absolutely, and we appreciate you being flexible with this first one as we hone in on the process. So yes.
Okay. Next item of business, moving right along. I sent out the minutes from the February 4th OAC meeting, really for your information. As you know, there's a small group that gets together. It's sort of not so small, a lot of professionals, and a lot of the nitty-gritty of the construction business goes on in these meetings, and they're held twice a month, the first week of the month and the third week of the month. And with that, I'm going to put it over to George if there are any questions that people have about the minutes. I realize there's a lot there, or the process. No questions. Okay. I hope you all enjoy going to those meetings every now and then. They are actually quite interesting.
I actually, if you don't mind, I just have one or two quick questions. And I did skim through it before our meeting, and I did appreciate its thoroughness. There was really a lot of information there, and thank you for that. Two quick questions. One is with regard to the schedule of the mock-up and whether there's any committee involvement in that in terms of approving the mock-up. And then the second is with regard to what was encountered on the site. There was a note that there was some rock encountered, and there was some cleanup of prior storm dry well, and there was also a septic field in that area. So I'd just be interested in a quick overview as to what was found and what was predicted, and anything unusual that we encountered in the excavation.
Yeah, there's nothing unusual. The rock was predicted. You know, we the borings did show the rock, and worked very closely with Luke and Scott, and just hammered it through. It was kind of along that south storm line going through. We'll probably see some more rock as we go. And then as far as the I guess the septic, where it was more or less a dry well, that was kind of unpredicted, but must have been put in. I'm going to say maybe, Mike, when they did that work in the 90s, they discovered a dry well, which is basically just it was like an inch and a quarter stone, a lot of stone, and then a dry well, which they're actually using for some temporary collecting the water and pumping it. So those the rock was predicted. The dry well, I don't think it was shown, but it was a lot to our benefit. So that was kind of a nice thing to come across.
And just very quickly on that, I just want to thank Scott and the construction team. They give me a heads up anytime they hit rock, just so that we can organize the best time to start to do that heavy jackhammer work. So just much appreciated. That communication's been great. So we've been working well.
Yeah, so far it's been going pretty well. They've in the sea, they started excavating footings and prepping. Capasso started the other day with forming footings for concrete. I believe Monday they're going to have their first placement of the concrete, and that's been going pretty well too. I think Lagnan's been out there monitoring the excavation on the bottom of footings. I don't think we've had any areas where we had to over excavate and fill with structural fill. There might be something minor, but nothing major. So far, so good. Things have been going as kind of what we expected to see.
Great, thank you. And then with regard to Yeah, the mock-up question.
The mock-up, yeah, they, they'll probably start pouring the base for the mock-up. I mean, we're kind of in the early stages. I think as we move forward, obviously the committee will committee and SLAM, and then the different trades would be involved in that. But we're probably a couple of weeks away from starting with the mock-up and the platforms and those kind of things. But a lot of
George,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, George, do we plan to put samples of the brick on the mock-up as well? Because I know that, okay. So that's really the best place to check out the coloration.
Correct. Yeah, it's a very involved mock-up. I mean, I almost, it's I think like a mock-up on steroids, right? I mean, it's going to be more for finishes, but also for for like installation coordination and all of that. So it's going to be a pretty.
Well, the reason I asked was because we agreed last time that the approval of the brick coloration could be done by the architects rather than having to come back to the committee. But if we see it on the mock-up, that's our best evidence.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. You'll see. Yeah. I think you'll see the brick on the mock-up. There's going to be windows. You'll see the framing of the exterior walls and the flashing and all that. So not only the committee and the architect be involved. You have the commissioning agent as well. So there'll be details and all of that. And most, I would say the trades that are involved in the mock-up, their submittals have been in and being reviewed, and I think that process is going very well with everything, and so in pretty good shape.
Any other questions concerning this? Thanks, George. Quick discussion about, because Diane's been looking into solar panels. And what have you found, Diane?
Well, Nick and I had a conversation with Ed Gentile and Mike Lynch, just trying to get started on when we need to proceed and go ahead and hire a solar panel supplier for the roof. And Rusty as well is involved in this effort. And Ed was quite helpful. He shared with us the work that the town has done and what his process and procedure has been. So we're going to take that knowledge and information from him, working with Mike, obviously. And I guess the big issue here, in my opinion, is trying to figure out what the right timing is for initiating getting this contract started, with recognition that this is a Board of Ed effort, and it will be a Board of Ed contract to see through and work with. So it really should be part of other work in this area that the Board of Ed is doing. So, so the question's been raised as to whether this is a effort that we should undertake with some input from Mike Lynch, obviously, in the Board of Ed, or whether perhaps it's an effort that should be undertaken entirely by the Board of Ed upon our delivery of the completed project. So that is something that we're talking about. Mike was going to do a little bit of research on trying to find out sort of precedents, what's been going on with other schools. I spoke with Amy, who offered an example that on a school that Kemp has worked on, where they did in fact deliver the finished school without the solars and the solar component, and then that was handled as a completely separate project after the work was done. I'd be interested to get AP and O&G's input in that, and then Mike was going to, as I said, try and find out what sort of other schools in the area have done, and we're not the only ones in this situation. So trying to determine that. So that's sort of where we are right now. it's a conversation we need to continue on, and maybe not necessarily here, but I thought it's important to inform the committee and see if anybody's interested. We should definitely jump in on the conversation.
Yeah, Dan, I'd like
Dave,
to make sure.
your camera's off. Sorry, go ahead, Alan.
Oh, sorry. I can circle back with you, you and Mike and stuff. I just want to be very clear what that means for Board of Education, possibly after the event, where that fits in with capital planning or anything else. So yes, that's fine. I can touch base with Mike, and if there's any other discussions about the planning for financing or otherwise, I'll certainly volunteer to participate in that capacity. Thank you.
The one thing that I think is essential is that, and Amy, this is kind of directed at SLAM and the work that's been done, is to whether we have to hire a consultant to make sure that the design that we currently have has all the correct fittings and conduits and connections, so that, let's just say, we're going to use an example, we're going to turn the building over at the end of the day and say, here's a building, go ahead with solar. We don't want to have changes to be able to accommodate solar after the fact. We want it to be designed in now, knowing that at some point in time, it's more than likely the solar panels will go on the roof. Okay?
Agreed. And as far as the design team is concerned, we're very comfortable with the fact that infrastructure is in the project base bid. We've included conduit runs. We've included, locations on all of the electric panels for their connections. And the structure has been designed at the roof level to handle that capacity.
Okay, so what you're recommending is we don't have to go out and have a consultant check all the drawings and whatever.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
That's great.
It's all built in.
Okay.
Dave, you're on mute, unless you're intentionally on mute.
Well, you're saying the best this has all day. Are there any other matters to bring up before the committee? Katie.
I just wanted to quickly give a shout out to Luke, who has been doing some really great work in terms of sharing what's going on in the construction with the staff and the students, and also working to connect other people in the district to help us do sort of a creative celebration of our groundwork. So I just wanted to say kudos and thank you to Luke for really just connecting everyone in all those ways.
Right. And now you and Duke and others, we're going to work on the celebration for our opening, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I connected with Luke about an idea I had based on some things that the ELP had kind of been doing, splashing some color on the walls. And Luke, do you want to talk about this? You were the one who connected it with all the art teachers and.
Yeah, my pleasure. So basically what we're doing is we're working to create a big vinyl sign. Katie had a great idea that maybe we could do a mural for the kids out there. She's also been leading up at our school level a 5th grade service project group. So kind of tying together the service project kids are doing with something cool for all of our students. I'm working with our art department because, again, I know where I need to go when I need help. And so we're, with their recommendation, I'm working with a local vendor that I've gotten these big vinyl signs before, which made a lot of sense because we can post something, do some publicity around it, get the community broadly interested in it, and then we can have that vinyl side that can move with the phasing of the construction project. So if kids did this cool artwork on, the wall behind my office here, and that comes down as we go to phase 2, we pick up this nice, beautiful vinyl side, we move it. So that's in a nutshell what we're working on. 5th graders, when we get back from the break, are going to be producing artwork. I'm working with our art team and Signs of Success out of Stanford, if the shout out's useful, who are going to help us then actualize it into a big vinyl sign that we can hang and do some, again, good publicity for the project.
Outstanding. Great.
And I had one other question, and Kip, maybe you could just give a quick summary. I'm not really up to speed on where we are with regard to the gas supply to the site and what sort of the long-term strategy is in terms of the fuel for the site, where we are with that, right?
That was determined some time ago when Eversource came back and said it was going to cost over $1.5 million of our money to bring gas up to the school. So it was changed to propane. So we have a large, I don't know how many, is it 6,000 gallon, Amy, or it's a big propane tank that is basically going to service and fuel the school. And there's, because of the incredible cost that Eversource put to bring a line up the street. And most of that cost, by the way, is redoing Mansfield Avenue, which is a state road. So you have to use Department of Transportation people, and you're getting about 3 to 4 hours of productive work a day out of those people. And that's why the cost is so ridiculous. So that was canceled a number of months ago because of their number they came back with.
And the possibility of that being, I mean, obviously it's a future, could happen in the future if Eversource changed their plans and is going to run a line up the road for other purposes or whatever it might be. So obviously we can switch over to that. It's kind of seen, I always thought it was seen more as a temporary situation as a plan for the future, although operating on propane is perfectly acceptable and will work, and it may be maybe our long-term solution then. Okay. I just wasn't quite sure the long-term.
Diane, this is Nick. I believe the pipe for gas within the building is sized to handle both propane and natural gas for future use if it does come to the building, as well as the boilers are capable of burning both as well.
Yes.
You're correct.
So we can go either way. But
it can be, the fitting can be changed out to natural gas if that ever does come down the road. So you're set up again for the future in case. And that would make the building even more energy efficient.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody have anything else they want to add? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Dan motions. Do I have a second?
Duke.
Sean will second.
Sean, I'm going to get your name down there a lot today, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah, you won't see me again for a while.
Wait, where are you going now? Wait a minute, buddy. Wait a minute.
Yeah, no, that's all good.
Not so fast. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.